If you've been watching my videos, you know I like to keep things light, have fun, have a good time. However, this next topic is difficult. It is not fun. However, it's something that I felt needed to be discussed. This is obviously nothing new. This is stuff you can easily access and research on your own. However, it is a personal experience of mine now that I've visited Cambodia, and I feel that it's important to have a discussion about it. When I was doing research on Cambodia, I was trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do, where I wanted to visit, and I watched videos giving suggestions. And one of the things that was mentioned was visit the killing fields. Now, if you're like me, you might not actually know what they are. If you're my age, you might remember there was a movie made. Now, I didn't actually see that movie. However, that was the first thing that came to mind when I heard that term. I really didn't know anything about it. However, after watching that video, I did a little bit of research into it. When I got to Cambodia, I stayed at first in the capital city of Phnom Penh. And that is in the general area of where the killing fields are. Now, the first thing to explain, the killing field is not one place. It is many places. And when you say, I'm going to visit the killing fields in Cambodia to pay respect, you're basically talking about one area. That area is the Choeung Ek Genocidal Center in Phnom Penh. It is basically the main area people go to. And when somebody says they're going to the killing fields, that is where they're going to visit to pay respects. Now, before I go into that, I'm going to back this up a little bit and give it a little history because I feel it's important. Again, this is all researchable stuff you can find on your own. It's just not stuff I didn't know. And after visiting, I learned a lot about it. So this is some of what I learned. And it's important to give you this before I actually talk about the killing fields themselves. So when you're talking about the killing fields, you're talking about a time period in Cambodian history called Khmer Rouge. Firstly, if you look that up, it's spelled Khmer, Khmer. However, in Cambodian, their language is actually called Khmer. Their culture is Khmer, so it's pronounced Khmer. Khmer Rouge is a French term meaning red, rouge, red. Why do they call it that? Because between 1976 and 1979, the Communist Party of Kampuchea, it was a radical communist movement, took power of Cambodia. So communist red, Khmer Rouge. This army was built up in the 60s by the Viet Cong, the Lao People's Liberation Army, and Communist China. So basically, together, they formed this group, and this group took over Cambodia. Now, when you're talking about Khmer Rouge and the killing fields, a name is going to come up, Pol Pot. Pol Pot is not a real name. It is a term. It is a shortened French term for politique potentielle, or potential politics. The person you're talking about when you're discussing Pol Pot, his real name is Saloth Sar. He, in control of the Khmer Rouge, killed between 1.5 and 3 million Cambodians. It was a brutal campaign, a civil war, where they wiped out Cambodian minorities and political opponents. So to put that in perspective, that's 1 out of every 4 Cambodians during that time period were murdered. Every single person that was alive during that time was affected by this in Cambodia. It was a small country with a small population, and they lost a quarter of it in 3 years. Now, in 1979, eventually Vietnam invaded Cambodia and destroyed most of its forces, and the Khmer Rouge came to an end. So when you're talking about Khmer Rouge, it's only a 3-year period, and it's not too long ago. It's during our lifetime that this occurred, and it's important to remember that. So what are the killing fields? The killing fields are a generic term for a group of areas where the Khmer Rouge massacred Cambodians. When you go to Cambodia to visit the killing fields, you're going to pay respects at a specific location. You are going to what is known as the Choeung Ek Genocidal Center in Phnom Penh. This is where I visited, and what I'm going to describe in my experience visiting there and what I saw. I took some photos, which I'm going to show you, and I'm also going to show you some video that I took. The video is just of my thoughts while I was there. It was a very moving experience, and I wanted to kind of capture that moment, and I'll share it with you just to kind of give you a general idea of what that's like. When you arrive at Choeung Ek Genocidal Center, aka the Killing Fields, it's a field. That's really all it is, with a monument in the middle. So when you go, you pay an entrance fee. Now, Khmer citizens don't have to pay, but outsiders, tourists, do have to pay. That money goes to the upkeep and the preservation of the site, which is super important, as I will explain in just a minute why this is. You pay, and then you get an audio guide, and you start and you go to about 20 different locations, and it's just a big, like I said, it's a big field. That's really all that it is. And you're walking around and you come to these signposts. Each one of these different signposts you stop at and you listen to the audio tour, and they tell you about what occurred at that specific site. They have the survivors and the knowledge of what occurred there. Those things have obviously disappeared over time, so these signs are there to remember them. At each location, you stop and listen, and then you move to the next one. So one of the chilling things that occurs while you're there is you will actually see skull fragments and bone fragments coming up out of the ground. It's not like it's everywhere, don't get me wrong. However, they are there. There were so many people massacred at these sites that even after all these years, almost 50 years have gone by, and the rain will still wash away some of these bone fragments, and they will come up to the surface. One of the reasons why it's important to collect these ticket fees is staff will take these remnants and give them the proper care that they deserve. You're obviously warned ahead of time about this, and you're told not to, obviously, don't touch any of this stuff. So you're confronted with the death. It's still there today. More so when I explain the monument at the end. But one of the most interesting facts about this place isn't actually the killing fields. It's the fact that there is a school within hearing distance, and you can hear the kids playing outside. And it is a striking contrast between where you're standing and what you're hearing. And it's almost like poetry with end of life, beginning of life. And it's a very interesting thing to experience. I honestly don't know if that's done on purpose or not. However, it was just an amazing thing to be part of. Another interesting part about the killing fields is when you're walking around, you eventually walk around this beautiful lake that's in the middle of the field. There's also a fence that runs the perimeter as well. You're going along the tour, you're going along some of the fence line. In that, they grow things in that lake that people will harvest. So again, it's another thing where life comes from this place of death. I actually kind of discuss this in the video, which I'm gonna put up. And so anyway, when you're done with the stops, you will then come to the monument, the structure at the end of the tour. It's somewhat like a Buddhist temple in its design, and I have pictures which I'm going to put up so you can see. You have to take your shoes off before you come in. You can give a donation and get some incense and say a prayer before you go into the victims. You can also offer more donation money as well. You take your shoes off and go in to this extremely tight structure. The people that developed it obviously did this on purpose. There's barely any place to move. It would be claustrophobic if it wasn't for the fact there's glass windows all around and doorways you can easily access. Why do they do this? It becomes apparent when you see these photos. You are almost literally pressed up against glass with skulls and bones that go from floor way up high to the top of the monument. They are making a huge and obvious statement, making you confront this, something that you have no choice but to see. Not only that, but to go around on the inside of the structure, the four sides of it, you have to squeeze through these very tight corners to get to the next side. I think in my case, because I'm a bigger guy, I actually had to turn to my side to get through. And it's more and more. You're getting the four-sided view of this monument, the structure. It's horrifying, but it's poignant and it's super important to witness. These people are telling their stories and you're bearing witness to them 45, 50 years after the fact. So it's super powerful. And then you leave that, you put your shoes back on, and then you go. Here in the killing fields at the Genocidal Museum in Choeung Ek. It's one of the things you're supposed to do basically when you're visiting Cambodia is to pay respect. This is one of the killing fields. This is from Pol Pot in the 70s, 76 to 79 I think is what it was. They killed over 3 million Cambodians. This is basically Cambodians killing other Cambodians. Pol Pot was trying to create a perfect society. This is not a prison camp. This was just a killing place. They literally brought people here to kill them. 3 million out of 8 million Cambodians at the time, I believe they said, died. And yeah, it's horrifying and awful listening to this tour. And I just wanted to stop now and do it here because it's actually kind of an interesting contradiction. There's some beautiful peace at this place with a field of the lakes. They actually grow things in here. And then on the other side there is it sounds like a school because you could hear kids playing at the playground, so it's an odd contradiction. It's again it's horrifying. After all this time, they're still picking up pieces of bone and fragments all over the place as the rain washes it away. So yeah, I'm glad I came here, but obviously this is just awful. But it's important to do if you're visiting a country, I suppose, is learn about their history, and this is just a horrifying part of their history. I'm going to talk a little bit about the next thing we did when it comes to Khmer Rouge. Unfortunately, it doesn't end at the killing fields. The Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum was next. Our driver, Paul, who was also acted as a local guide for us a little bit, he is a super nice guy. I became friends with him on Facebook. He's what I would consider a Cambodian patriot. He loves this country very much, talks about it. And if you have any interest in learning about Cambodia, Cambodian politics, history, if you're planning on visiting, please reach out to him. Not only is he an awesome driver and he'll give you a great rate if you want to go all around Phnom Penh. And I'll tell you this, our last stop was all the way, hours away in Khmer Rouge. He picked us up. He drove 2 hours on the highway to pick us up in Sihanoukville, which is where we landed off the boat, and then drove all the way back. He was amazing, an outstanding guy. Highly recommend it. Again, you can book him for like an all-day thing at an extremely reasonable rate, or if you just want to take him one place to another from the airport or whatever. We found him by luck, and it was an awesome thing. So he mentioned what's called the Torture Museum, but its real name again is the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. What this location was, it is a little bit farther away from that, but again, if you're going to pay respects, you need to go there too. We got there, and you have to pay admission fee, again, for the same reasons. They have to upkeep this place. Locals get in for free. And basically, it is prison bunkers. There's, I think, 3 of them, large, long halls where the prisoners stayed. And the striking contrast there is there's beautiful landscape around it now. It's beautiful. The trees there were just amazing. It was calm and peaceful there. And again, I think it is done on purpose for the contrast, to show that out of something horrible, something beautiful can still exist. And I did not do a tour there. I just didn't feel it was necessary. I got the point of the experience as I went through, which I'll kind of describe. And also, honestly, it was just draining being at the killing fields. It was like a 1-2 punch. I just didn't have it in me to do that again. So when you go into these structures where the prisoners were kept, in some cases, you'll see just beds. The beds and some of the torture equipment and stuff they used, where they're just really small rooms, and the beds. But the main halls have the photographs of all the prisoners, or a good portion of the prisoners that came through there. There's so many of them, and it's shocking and awful, but there's children, young children, all the way up to people that are in their 70s or 80s, all pictures of them everywhere. They were all kept there and tortured, and obviously some were killed. I imagine a good portion of them were killed, but this was not necessarily a place like the killing fields. This place was for political prisoners that they tortured and tried to, in some cases, re-educate. So it was just awful to see this, obviously. But one of the nicer things at the end, when you're done, as you're going through the park area, they have some survivors that are there, and you get the chance to. You can't really talk to them unless you know Khmer, but they have translators there that are standing with them. They're sitting there, and they have books that they sell. And I actually picked up. There were 3 of them there, but I only picked up 2 books. The first one was by a person named Choeung Ek, called Survivor. And the next one is Bu Meng by Hugh Vanak. So these 2 gentlemen were there. They were older, in their maybe 80s or so, and they were very thankful. You get to take pictures with them. It's not something that obviously I requested, but they encourage it. I think they like to get their stories out and pictures of them out, so you get the honor of taking pictures with these people that have gone through literal hell. And so I did that as well. Cambodia does not have a social net like we do in America. It is a third world country, and these people are older, and they do it for the money. This isn't an enjoyable thing for them, I'm sure, to have to relive this and talk about it and go through this all the time. So for them, it is financial. And I mean, I'm sure there is a good portion of this that is talking about their story as well, but these people are old. I'm sure they would just like to relax and not have to do this every day. It was brutally hot there. They were not comfortable. Um, so yeah, anyway, that was the Tuol Sleng Genocidal Museum, and that was kind of the 1-2 of the Khmer Rouge um, learning experience when you go to Cambodia. If you watch this, I appreciate it. I mentioned before, this is not what I normally do. I like to have fun in my videos. However, I felt this was a very important subject, and I had a rather emotional experience when I went to visit this, and I wanted to share it with you. I think it's only human nature to want to share these types of experiences with others. Um, I strongly suggest, if you decide to visit Cambodia, which again, I recommend for many reasons, you take the time and visit these places, collectively known as the Killing Fields and the Torture Museum. If you just ask about it, they'll know what you're talking about. You don't need to buy tickets online ahead of time. If you're going through a tour thing like Expedia or whatever, do not buy the tickets there. You don't need to. You just go and buy them when you get there, and you can go. And if you do decide to go, please make sure to look up my friend Udon Paul on Facebook and let him know, and he'd be happy to make arrangements to take you all around the country that he services. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.